On the phone right now is Dan Simon. Dan is one of the fabulous financial planners specializing in retirement income at Dan White and Associates. Every Wednesday after the news at 1:30 comes in with a nice tip for you to live by. Learn it, live it, love it. Right, Dan?
You got it. Rick, how are you today?
Fine. Or is it learn it, love it, then live it? Yeah, I think it's learn it, love it, live it. Man, I got to get my dopey...
Oh, whatever you say. I'm just going to go along with it.
Yeah, I don't remember it anyway. So yeah, I'm going to sit here and quietly at my little school desk and learn from you, Dan. What you got?
I was a little taken back by the last caller because my name's Dan and I was at Costco too yesterday. I thought you were talking to me the whole time.
That's hilarious.
I started responding to you. I'm like, yeah, they're getting some toilet paper, some water, So, he wasn't wrong. I don't know if he was at the one in, Christiana there. I was at the one in Cockerville. It was the same store. I mean, the line was, wrapped around the store. It's crazy.
Man, so we got wait. We got two Costco stories here. It's the same thing going on yesterday. Folks are stocking up. Now, did you go there to stock up?
I was there to buy, what was I buying? Trash bags and Little Bites for my kids. So if we ran out of Little Bites due to the ports, it would have been a big issue.
Yeah, I saw you buy those in bulk for the kids. Those are those little muffins, right?
Other things.
Are those little muffins?
Yeah. Yeah, they come in a little bag. The kids will. I can't go into Costco and not fall apart. So it's you wander around there and you need this, that, and so forth. But anyhow.
I'm guilty.
So I will validate what the other Dan was saying.
Nice. No, I go there and say, oh, look at this cheap jeans. All right, $12. Well, and then I'm so cheap. I actually say to myself, I'll come back and buy these $12 jeans when I put a hole in these. Like, that's how cheap I am.
There you go.
As opposed to saying, oh, $12 jeans. Maybe I should buy them now before they go up to $15. But I don't think that way all the time. You got to plan for the future, Dan. There's your segue, and you always plan for the future.
Absolutely. So talk about planning for the future. Just wanted to discuss, some news that recently came out regarding missed required minimum distributions as well as excess IRA contributions. And the news is that there's essentially a new statute of limitations for when penalties can be applicable to both missed RMDs and excess IRA contributions. So we all know required minimum distributions, they start at a certain age. For most people, it's 73. For some of the younger folks who might be listening, it's going to be 75 for them. But we're required to take money out of IRAs, 401ks, tax-qualified retirement accounts every year for the rest of our life once you attain that age. Now, the problem was in the past, if you missed that specific required minimum distribution, the penalty was rather lengthy. It was the penalty itself was 50% of the amount that was required to take out of that account, which for a lot of people, that was a big deal. So you wanted to make sure you got these right, and you got it right the first time. With the Secure Act that went into law a few years ago, that law did change. They rolled it back to a 25% penalty, and even down to 10% if the missed RMD is timely corrected.
What does that mean?
Now, what it has,
hold on. What's timely?
If it's done with, I believe it is within. I believe it's in the following tax year,
okay,
the calendar year. If it's done, and there's a reason why. But if you swept it aside and said, you know what, forget it, I'm not dealing with it. Yeah, they're going to find you and they're going to, hit you with a 25% penalty.
So, can I share a little story here, and maybe you can comment on that? My dad passed in 2019 at the age of 90. At the age of 78 is when he started slipping. And actually, maybe a little bit before that, and I got him an apartment and all that. So he had not even paid his taxes for like 2 years because he was getting confused. And I looked at this and I thought, oh my gosh. So here we are going into his 79th year now, and I call his accountant. He said, yeah, I hadn't talked to him in a few years. It's like, yeah, I think maybe you didn't. And what do we do? So he was not diagnosed with anything, Dan. There was we had no doctors, no anything like that. And the accountant said, well, look, here's what we can do. We can write a letter to the IRS and say that he hasn't paid his taxes for I think it was like 2 years. Yeah, because we're going on the third year here. Because of mental impairment. and say that it was undiagnosed, but and do that. And said, okay, fine. Well, we did that, and the IRS came back and said, that's fine. No penalties, no extra fees or penalties or taxes. Just pay the taxes that are owed over these last 3 years, and he'll be fine. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's the same kind of approach.
It is. The form itself with the IRS is Form 5329. And what I always encourage people to do is you are far better off asking for forgiveness. Usually there's a reason why the RMD itself wasn't taken, as opposed to just sweeping it under the rug and saying, well, we forgot about it. They probably will too. They won't. But the statute of limitations now allows them basically 6 years to look back on it. So, the bottom line is if you don't fix it, the IRS has 6 years to look into it and come after you. So that applies to both RMDs as well as to excess IRA contributions. So, an example of that is, someone's just kind of, hey, this happened to a friend of mine, actually. We were just sitting around talking one day. I'm putting money into my Roth IRA and putting money in my Roth IRA. And, we never really got into the kind of nuts and bolts of how much he made, but I could kind of figure it out. And I was like, you can't put money into a Roth IRA. I'm pretty sure you're making too much money. And he was. He went through his account. The account's like, oh, you can't do that. Like, well, you never told me.
Yep.
Right? So similar story, whereas if all of a sudden you're making a little bit more money than you thought you were and you're priced out of putting in money into a Roth or a traditional IRA, they do want that money to be paid back. So they give you a 6-year window now at this point to make sure that if you did something wrong, get it resolved, but they've also got 6 years to look back into it. The problem with that is most people don't realize, I can't do that. Well, the penalty for an excess contribution to a Roth or a traditional IRA, it's 6%. Each year, the excess amount stays in the account as of December 31st that year. So there is a window, right? So if the penalty is not corrected by October 15th the following year, that's when you're dealing with penalties. And the one thing that the release of the news clarified was the IRS is able to waive penalties for missed RMDs. They cannot waive it for an excess contribution into an IRA or Roth IRA. So they do give you a little bit of leniency on the RMD side, but none whatsoever on the IRA contribution side.
Well, that makes sense because, they're sitting around this table going like, well, what about these rich guys? Screw them. We're going to help them out. Now, but what I find amazing is that whoever is doing this, I don't know if this is legislation or it's bureaucrats. I don't know if you know that, but they're actually reducing the penalties. That's unusual for the government.
They are. It is unusual for the government, but I think it all falls into line with the objective of the Secure Act. And there were probably a handful of real kind of game changer laws that changed. The majority are positive, meaning the goal of the Secure Act more than anything is to help people's retirement savings last longer. I think the government recognizes it, people in our industry recognize it, and I think by and large the population in this country recognizes it, that people are living longer. Majority of Americans are not adequately prepared to fund their own retirement, especially with the ongoing disappearance of pensions. And it is a huge threat to the economy, society as a whole, with an aging generation that isn't prepared to financially fund that longer life expectancy. So I do believe that what the government has been doing with Secure Act 1.0, 2.0, and so forth is creating a little bit more security for the retiree. Is it enough? Probably not. That kind of falls all on our own shoulders at this point to make sure that we're saving enough and investing appropriately for retirement. But by pushing back RMD ages, decreasing RMD amounts, a lot of positives to kind of prolong those accounts' life so that it lasts as long as the account owner's life does are good things. And, the only drawback that I saw with the Secure Act was the elimination of the stretch IRA and the lifetime deferral of an inheritance of an IRA to a non-spouse beneficiary, whereas now we have the 10-year rule, which applies. And, it's a concern for people. I mean, specifically in my age bracket, I'm in my early 40s, and you inherit an IRA from mom and dad, and then we got to deplete it over the course of the next 10 years. Well, the odds are, somebody in their 50s, early 60s, they're going to be making more money than they've ever made in their career. And now we're, dumping mom and dad's retirement savings that they never paid tax on into our taxable income. Which who knows where the highest income tax brackets or the upper income tax brackets are going to be 10, 15 years from now with the debt this country's carrying. I think most people are in agreement that it's going to be higher than where it is now. So
Absolutely,
that was really the only downside that I saw to, the laws that were put through with Secure Act. But by and large, I think it does create more security, less penalties, a little bit more kind of a realistic outlook.
So what I'm learning from you is it's not just the bureaucrats, it's lawmakers there in the House and the Senate who are also involved in this and putting this into the Secure Act. Yeah, which, by the way, I agree. It seems counterintuitive because the things that people were focusing on, like yourself, people who are researching this, found that, well, the government wants your money faster. And they want it now because the government needs your money more than you do. And that's far too common. This is the opposite of that, as opposed to saying, oh, you inherited some money. You got to take it out of that account in 10 years and give us all our taxes and the heck with you. This is just the opposite, saying, okay, if you don't deplete the account in a reasonable amount of time, like that 1 year you said, they're going to lower the fees and the penalties. It seems counterintuitive. I'd love to be a fly on that wall, man, when they're debating this, and one person says, "How about we do something to help people?" And I'm thinking,
what a novel idea, right?
I know, right? And I'm thinking, lawmakers are looking at them going like, "What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? Government needs more money. Come on, you're gonna make us late for lunch.
Yeah.
Don't make us late for lunch."
Exactly.
All right, Dan Simon is a professional and very, very good financial planner who is very, very good. Is that a good enough compliment for you? I don't know.
Keep playing it on. I love the flattery, Rick. I don't get it very often.
That's because you have kids.
That's right.
That's right. It doesn't matter what you do. When you get home, the kids will let you have it. All right. So anyway, Extraordinary Financial Planner with Dan White and Associates. Now, Dan also has a program on this show Sunday mornings at 7 on 1150 AM, 1017 FM, and streaming live at WDEL.com. And that's at 7 a.m. Sundays, right?
It is 7 a.m. Sunday morning. Tune in. It'll be a good show.
All right. Dan Simon, thanks so much for your time, sir. Be well.
Thank you, Rick.